Welcome back. Now we've created an actor and we've created a pawn, and we have our blueprints folder here with our items folder containing BP item and our pawns folder containing BP bird. And we've seen that we could pilot the bird by possessing that bird, and we've even created our very own game mode blueprint and set the bird as the default pawn there. Now that we have experience with actors and pawns, the next logical step in our progression is to create a character. Now, character is the next step up from pawn. It has all of the pawn's capabilities. We can possess a character, but it also has additional functions and more capabilities designed for humanoid characters. And our character in this game project will be a human, or at least a humanoid. Now, that means we need a mesh, particularly a skeletal mesh that we can use, and it helps if we have animations because we don't want our character to be static. Now, we did import some content into this project, and these large cliffs came from the Valley of the Ancients demo project, and when we migrated some of those assets over, you may have noticed that the Ancient Content folder has a Characters folder, and inside of it is the Echo folder. And if we double-click on the Echo folder, we have assets related to Echo, who is a character created for the Valley of the Ancients project. Now, if you didn't happen to get that Characters folder, I'm going to show you how to get it into this project. All you need to do is open the Valley of the Ancients project. Now, this is a large project, and you may have opted not to use it, in which case you need a character mesh from elsewhere. And there are lots of sources for character meshes, and I'll show you one that's a bit cheaper on your PC, that is. But for those of you who want to use Echo, you can get it from Valley of the Ancients. And this is the Characters folder here in the Valley of the Ancients project. And in the Meshes folder, we have Echo. And there are two skeletal meshes for Echo. There's the body and there's the hair. The reason the hair has its own skeletal mesh is because it's pretty intricate itself. It has a ponytail. The ponytail is even rigged to a skeleton. It's got its own bones and everything, so the ponytail can move and flop around. Now, if you want to get this characters folder into your project, you're going to right-click on the characters folder and select Migrate, and it shows you a list of all of the assets that will be migrated over. So these are all associated with Echo. And if you click OK, then you have to choose a content folder. Now, very important, when you migrate from one Unreal Engine project to another, you have to migrate straight to a content folder. You can't migrate into any other type of folder. It has to be content. And all you would do is select that folder. And in my case, I already have those Echo assets. And it's asking if I'd like to overwrite those assets. It's going to ask me for every single asset that's already in that project. Now, you can go one by one and click yes to overwrite or no to not overwrite, or you can click yes all or no all. Now, I would like to not overwrite those assets that I already have, so I'm going to click no all. And it says content migration completed successfully. So I have everything in the characters folder now in my slash project. Now, if you don't want Echo, if you want to use a different character, you are free to use other characters. Just be mindful that you might not have all of the animations we're going to use. But one project that does have a character that's a bit smaller than Echo, Echo is quite high fidelity, quite detailed. There's a project that you can get if you open the Epic Games launcher in the samples section. And if you scroll down, there are lots of example projects here. There's Valley of the Ancient. That's where you can get that project. We have Lyra Starter Game, and that contains shooter assets, lots of shooter animations, all rigged to the new Epic Mannequin. Slay Animation Sample also has Echo inside of it, and it's actually a pretty large project, larger than Valley of the Ancients, but we can keep scrolling down, and one project that has quite a few animations is this Action RPG project. This project also has a character, and some animation. So it's designed for mobile. So these are lower poly assets. They take up less space on your computer. And there are some fighting animations as well, swinging the swords, as well as a couple weapons. So that is something you can download, and you can go in and find the character and migrate it over. And if you do happen to choose to download the Action RPG, it's an Unreal Engine 4 project, so be mindful of that. You can still migrate assets from an Unreal Engine 4 project, but you have to have Unreal Engine 4 installed to do that. Now, as soon as you do download Action RPG, you can open it on up. And this is the Action RPG game, and it's playable. You can actually press play and run around and fight monsters. It's actually pretty awesome. Now, it comes with a character, and it's got its own characters folder. And in the characters folder, in the Barbarous folder, there's this Barbarous skeletal mesh. Now, here's what it looks like. It's this character, not quite as detailed as Echo, but still pretty cool, and it does have animations associated with it, and that would be in the animations folder. You can see those animations here. It has idle, walk, and run, as well as swinging swords and things like that. So that's another option for us. So if you prefer to not use so much space on your computer, you can migrate that over. And the project has other assets as well, including some enemies. In the enemy folder, there's a spider, looks like this, and it has animations as well as this little dude and a couple of variations of him. Again, you see it's a little bit less detailed, but still looks good. And you can migrate those over if you're interested. We'll get into enemies in this course later. And just as a kind of side note, it does have potions. So if you want a potion mesh, you can migrate those over. And if you ever don't know where to find certain assets, if you see it in the world, of course you can always find it in the World Outliner. In Unreal Engine 5, it's just called Outliner. And you can right-click, browse to the asset, and in this case, this is a blueprint. And if I open this blueprint and click Open Full Blueprint Editor, I can see what this looks like. So this is a full blueprint, and it has a static mesh component, and it's called Item Mesh. And you can even browse to that item mesh, and here it is. And interestingly, the mesh itself has this bobbing sinusoidal behavior already on it. So that's pretty cool. And if you're interested in that sort of thing, you can migrate that asset over as well. So lots of assets out there, and there's an alternative for you. But for this course, if you're following along exactly and you choose to use Echo, then you'll have now this Echo folder here in Characters under Ancient Content. And we're going to use Echo as our character. And here's what she looks like. Now, looks a little funny without the hair, but we're going to add the hair. Don't worry. She's not going to just be without hair. We'll add that hair, and we'll get to that soon enough. But for now, since we have assets, we need to create a new character class. So that's what we're going to do in this lecture. We're going to go ahead and go to our C++ classes folder here in /. Here's public. We're going to right-click and make a new C++ class. And this time, we're going to choose character to be the parent class for our brand new C++ class. So let's go ahead and click next. And in the public folder, I'd like to get this character into its own folder called characters. And in characters, we're going to place our new class. And we need to give it a good name. And I'm going to call this /character. And go ahead and click Create Class. And Visual Studio will open right up with /character. And it's going to ask me to reload everything. Here's the live coding window that Unreal Engine pops up. I'm going to go ahead and let the live coding complete. And while that's happening, I'm going to go ahead and click Reload All from here in Visual Studio. And go ahead and just be patient. Let live coding finish doing its thing. We're going to be closing out of the editor and compiling from Visual Studio very soon. So let live coding finish. Okay, and with live coding finished, we're going to close that window. And I'm going to go back to my Unreal Engine editor and close out of Unreal Engine because we're going to compile from right here in Visual Studio. But first, let's take a look at our brand new character class, /character. So we have /character.h and /character.cpp. And /character.h has a constructor. It has begin play and tick, as well as setup player input component. We're now familiar with this function. We know that we can use it to bind functions to our axis mappings, right? So we already know what this does. So we can remove that comment. We can remove the comments above all these functions since we already know what they do by this point. And we can go back to /character and remove the comments from here as well. So we don't need these comments anymore. We'll go ahead and remove each of them. Now we have these functions, right? And I'd like to keep this as orderly as possible the whole time as we're developing. I don't like my classes to get cluttered. So I'm going to keep my tick and setup player input component functions all in the same public section with my constructor. So I'm going to drag those up here and get rid of that bottom public section. So now we have our class nice and organized, and we're ready to start implementing some functionality. And the first thing we're going to want is a skeletal mesh component, and we'll do that in the next lecture. So I will see you soon.